Welcome to the DYB podcast, where each week we share strategies and stories to inspire you to double your business so that you can have financial freedom, time for your family, and make an impact in your community. And now, this week's episode.
What happened?
So we have a system for everything, right? And we had this big block wall with all this peeling paint all over it, and it's a big wall. And you're supposed to power wash. Whenever you have a lot of peeling paint, you power wash, contain all the paint chips, do a lot of the heavy lifting. So the guys know they're supposed to do this, and then finish the job with the scrapers and the putty knives. And I go there in the afternoon. This is a few months back, and there's two guys just scraping this wall diligently with putty knives. And I'm like, why aren't you? You should have been done by like 9 o'clock. And they said, oh, we forgot the power washer, so we just figured we just would scrape the wall. So they're spending an extra 6 hours hand scraping this wall. It's something as simple as just not following protocol and not doing what was on the work order and driving 10 minutes to the shop to get a power washer. They thought they would just get it done by hand.
Oh man, that reminds me. A long time ago, back when my first business up in Michigan, I hired one of my cousins. I'll leave his name out, and I was trying to teach him to cut a line to the base, and he just said, "Well, I'm just going to cut the line, and I'll come back and clean it up when I paint the base." And so I allowed. I said, "Okay." And he came back and painted the base and kind of got it on the wall. I said, "Well, here, hold on, what's going on? We've got to cut a straight line." Well, I'll just come back and touch up the wall. I'm like, well, when does it end? When do we cut the straight line? We just painting the wall, paint the base, paint the wall, paint the base. Let's work on cutting in a straight line the first time. Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, hello, and welcome to the DYB podcast. Our mission is to help you to build profitable businesses so that you can have financial freedom, time for your family, and make an impact in your communities. This episode 95, how to get your employees to do what you need them to do. And with me, we have April. April, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Great. Thank you.
All right. And even earlier in the morning on the West Coast, we have Seth. Seth, how's it going?
Good morning. Happy to be here.
All right. It's like, 7 a.m. for you? You already get your CrossFit in? Yeah. All right. Ready to roll.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Oh, man. So they decided it would be okay to scrape that wall because I forgot the pressure washer.
Yeah, I guess they decided they didn't think it through. But sometimes it's just you have to have those situations in order to have a good coaching moment, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I remember another one back in Michigan. So I like probably every hire back in Michigan. I did everything wrong. That was when I built the wrong company. Hired for skill and worked for a lot of bad clients. And so I remember one time I hired a friend, and we were working on a 2-story. He'd only go up 4 runs on the ladder. And I said, hey, we got to get up there. What's going on? He says, well, I'm kind of scared of heights. I'm like, well, all right, let's hustle up and get some of this over here. And he goes, well, can't you tell I'm lazy too? I don't think it's going to work out.
Yeah.
So to avoid that, step 1. Okay, so we have 8 principles here, if you will. And the first principle is hiring for character.
Yep.
We have to hire for character so that we don't make the mistakes, especially the ones that I made way back in my younger years, first hiring for skill. Instead, we need to hire for character, right, guys?
Right, for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And this, this will begin with an ad that has copy in it that attracts happy people with good character. Focusing on soft skills rather than hard skills, because we can teach, we can train the hard skills, but it's far more difficult to train the soft skills, right? It's difficult to train somebody why it's important to shave, why it's important to tuck your shirt in, why it's important to do what you say you're going to do. They should already have these innate skills in them, and then once they do, it's much easier to teach them to cut a straight line or walk up a ladder, for example.
100%. 100%. You got to build that all-star team.
Mm-hmm. And so you have your ad, which is, again, attracting those who are good people, happy people. And then you use we have 11 interview questions, and we'll share a few of them here. If you'd like all of them, just, search DYB Coach 11 interview questions, and it'll pop right up. It's a free download anywhere. Just go to your local Google, and I'm sure you'll find it. So, 3 examples of these questions, and one thing I really love about them is a lot of times interviewees, they will volunteer their character, whether it's good, mediocre, or bad, without realizing it. And we're not trying to be manipulative here. We're just asking questions, and they'll just kind of like lay it out, and which is fantastic because we need to know this now before we commit to some employment with them and find out, 90 days down the road, for example. And so the first one, we want to kind of tee them up. We've established rapport, and so we'll ask them to tell me about a time when you went above and beyond what was required of you. And then listen. Some might not have an answer. Some might say, well, I only do what I'm paid to do. Well, that's a good answer. That's very insightful, Or it may... Go ahead.
I was going to say that question often, I interview a lot of people with these questions. We use these 11 interview questions since the last 2 years. And that question tends to stump some people. And I find that the ones that are the most, I would say the ones that are the most deep thinkers, or they say the most honest answer, usually takes them a while to figure something out to say. The interviewees that I find that have a knee-jerk reaction, like, oh, I stay late and I clean up the job site when everybody else leaves. It's usually more of like they're trying to say what they need to say. So I usually find that someone who pauses a little bit and takes a while to think, like 15, 20, 30 seconds before they give you an answer. And the trick with this one is not to say anything after you ask the question. So sometimes that's hard part because you want to clarify the question, but it's pretty straightforward. Yeah.
So we'll be comfortable with the uncomfortable pause.
Yes.
Give them time to pull that up. Fantastic. Another one, second one, we promised 3 examples here. Tell me about a time when a job or project went badly. Right. A lot of times we can get some great insight here. And what we're looking for is ownership or blame, really the principle above the line, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But they share the incident, and we're looking to see if, if they took ownership or not. Seth, have you had any examples of that in some of your recent interviews?
How about when a job went badly? It's kind of like last interview I had was with a salmon fisherman guy. Kind of interesting story. He's a painter, but during salmon season, he goes out and salmon fishes off the coast. We live near a harbor commercial fishing town. And the reason why it didn't work out was because of his schedule. He needed like a couple months off, a year, whatever. But I asked him, I said, tell me about a time when a project went badly. And he said it was his first day working on this fishing boat. And he had this, I guess the dinghy or the rowboat one of the shuttle boats to go from the boat to the pickup location. And he told the guy, yeah, I know how to operate this boat and everything. And he got in the boat and he's like, he realized he panicked because he didn't know how to do it, but he just told him he knew what he was doing. And he ended up out in the middle of the bay, like floating away from everybody.
Oh, no.
So he told me he had to just like humble himself and like apologize. I don't know what I'm doing. I just need to go back to square one, and I'm not going to say I know how to do anything. So that was pretty cool because it showed that he was like, he learned that you never tell anybody you know what you're doing and then try to fake it in front of them, especially a labor job. It's going to be really apparent.
Yeah. When you can get lost in the ocean.
Come to think of it, that could have been a good opening story.
Yes, but that was a great response. Like he shared the story. He was humble with you. He shared the story, and he took ownership. So that's a sign of good character right there. And then third one, describe a time when you did not perform to your abilities. This is a tough one. We don't recommend you open up with this, so make sure you establish rapport. They need to feel like they can be honest with you. They need to feel like they can trust you enough to be honest with you, and that you won't rip their head off or tell them to, get out of your office right away if you let them know about a time that you didn't perform.
Yeah, that one also is that one I find also is a stumper for some interviewees. Because they're not coming into an interview thinking about what they've done bad in the past. They're coming in to promote themselves. And so it really, it separates a lot of the good from the bad in terms of interviewees, because it separates the guys that can switch from, positive to negative and self-reflection, which is the accountability piece of the puzzle, Connor.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, great point. Now, those are just 3 of the 11. Again, if you go to your local Google and just search DYB Coach, 11 interview questions, there's a free opt-in to go ahead and download those and print them out, use them. There's 11 of them, and they're very effective for you. So the second principle we have here is proper onboarding.
Sorry, Steve, can I add one more question to that?
Yeah.
One of my favorite questions to ask in the interview process is, tell me about the best boss you ever had. Mm-hmm. And number one, they'll generally talk about respect. That's usually the one keyword that they hear from them. The giveaway that this isn't a good fit is a boss that leaves them alone. Those aren't good words to hear, or like, oh, let's just do our thing, leaves us alone. That's kind of like a red flag there. But when you hear like words like he respected us, he checked in, he got to know us and like our family, and it was mutual respect. That's always a great answer to hear. A good green flag or checker flag, I guess you'd say. But that's one of my favorite questions to ask, because generally you get a response from everybody on that one. And I've only had a couple occasions where I've had people straight up tell me I haven't had any bosses that I've liked. So that could be true, or it could be just they thought they were saying the honest answer. But yeah.
Did you hire those? Did they work out?
It's hard to say. The ones that gave a good answer for that one, that question is not usually the tipping point question. That's more of just gauging how they see their employers in their own eyes. If they see through the lens of I'm an employee and it's unfair and this and this and this, then generally they're going to feel that way most of the time, no matter who it is.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you, Seth. Second principle, proper onboarding. I know, again, like for me, I can use the example of the wrong business that I built in Michigan, and then the correct one, that April and I built here in Florida. Like I did all the wrong things up there, lost it all, came down here. We did it correctly, and it all worked out really well. So I reflect back to Michigan business, proper onboarding. Onboarding wasn't in our vocabulary. If they knew how to paint, we'd throw them out in the field and say, here we go, let's get it. But instead, no, we need to have some proper. It's important to have proper onboarding, and we can make a whole episode about onboarding. But a couple of key areas to make sure that you onboard them properly is to, one, share your vision and your mission statement with them, and then also make sure you have a position agreement. There's a distinction between a position agreement and a job description. A job description is here's what you should do, but position agreement is we're hiring you for this position. We're going to pay you this much. And then included with this position agreement is a progressive disciplinary process. Okay. So what this means is the first time you don't do something that we have agreed to do according to this agreement that we're signing, you get a verbal warning and it's documented. The second time it happens, you get a written warning and it's documented. Third time, you get 3 days to a week off. And then the fourth time, it's likely termination. Now, these do reset every 12 months. But the fear is usually, we're really good at giving verbal warnings, but the fear is that we never want to write anybody up because we're afraid they'll quit, and it's so hard to find good people. But the magic is, or what's unusual is that when we actually do write them up, they do in a 180, turn right around. They go, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was that big of a deal. I'm sorry, it'll never happen again, right? And they respect the process, they respect the procedures, and the team hears about this and like, whoa, okay, was that serious? Right? And then word gets around and it doesn't happen. But it's usually at the second step of the progressive disciplinary process that most guys don't follow. And they just keep with the verbal, and kind of pounding their heads on the wall. But in fact, when you do sit down and give them a written warning, they do an about face.
Yeah, it's important. I know that for the first couple years, I would talk to, you have the talk. I'm going to have a talk with X, Y, and Z. I'm going to have a talk with, I'm going to say, Steve. I'm going to have a talk with Steve and he's going to change it up. He's going to do better. But now that we have like an actual system for it, and we kind of come at it like this, you have a phone call or on the site, hey, you've been late twice this past 2 weeks. This is your verbal warning. And if it happens again in the next week or 2 or 3 weeks, then, meet me in the office. Here's a paper. You just slide it across there. Sign this. This is what you're being written up for. And don't say anything. Don't say, hey man, I'm really sorry about having to do this. Just don't be emotional about it. It's almost like, they're being benched, they're on a sports team. Like, hey, you're benched, that was bad sportsmanship. You're benched for 2 innings. So you just write them up. Sometimes if it's egregious, if it's work performance or it's like bad behavior on a job site and it's not grounds for termination, recently we've been doing more of just, hey, you're going to go home and then come back to work on Friday, come take a day off and just, we're not going to have you come back tomorrow. That was uncalled for. But having some sort of a framework, it goes state by state, but having some sort of framework, like for tardies in absences, like 3 and 30, 3 write-ups in 6 months, showing up more than 30 minutes late and no call, no show, having basic guidelines that are set in stone that the guys sign a paper when they get hired, then they're expecting it, right? So when it happens, it's like, well, yeah, you signed the paper and I'm not doing this because I don't like you. I'm doing this because this is what you signed. It's part of our accountability agreement,
Yes, indeed, which perfectly plays into the next principle, and that's practicing the above the line culture. You mentioned accountability. In fact, you not only do you have this poster up in your office, I was just there hanging with Seth, but he actually, there you go ahead and show it. It's up on his wall.
That's our framework. You walk in, that's your framework. You got to see it.
So for those watching on YouTube, you can see it, but for the podcast, here's how I'll lay it out. Above the line culture. We've got these posters. You can pick them up. I recommend you put them everywhere. They're a game changer. They're a game changer in my life. They're a huge shift and in our business. And it's OR is OAR, and that's above the line. So it's ownership, accountability, and responsibility. Okay, it's hard work. It's like oaring upstream in a canoe. It takes work, yes, and sometimes things aren't your fault, but it's in how you choose to respond to it that makes the difference. Now, if you blame, make excuses, or deny, you might as well have stayed in bed, right? So there's the acronym, bed, blame, excuse, deny. So the process is to roll this out to your team, explain it to them, and then also give them permission to hold you accountable. And it's not that sometimes it wasn't really our fault. It's our response to what happened. And so when we hear people who might be below the line or blaming or excusing, and one that comes to mind is, why were you late? Oh, school buses. It's like, well, is that above or below the line? Well, it's true. The school bus made him late, but if he were to take ownership, right? Kids go to school, and we could have planned ahead, and probably should have planned ahead to be early anyway, so that in the event something happens, we would have been on time, right? So anytime, there's 2 questions we ask when somebody's below the line. We just say, was that above or below the line? Mm-hmm. Hopefully they own it, they recognize it, and then we just say, okay, how could we be above the line? And then they'll restate it, usually with some ownership and responsibility there. And so there's a little bit of habit training involved, but once it's laid out, it's just 2 questions. Was that above or below? How can we be above?
100%.
And then before you know it, your whole culture is above the line.
Yeah, a good example.
I like that after this.
I'm sorry, April, go ahead.
Oh, no, that's fine. I was just going to say, and then after you roll this out to your team in a team meeting, the next step is to, maybe not the next one, but in a couple weeks, have your team leader do that. And then have each person on the team explain it 1 week in a team meeting so that as they're explaining it, it's really becoming part of their philosophy as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it doesn't, I guess it's important for me to note, because I'm running a painting company here in the field, that even though we get to this level where we have a lot of mutual respect and a lot of guys are always above the line, we still have incidences, no matter how perfect, quote unquote, you get doing this, there's still going to have times where you're going to be able to coach the guys, and there's going to be times where people are below the line. You have to bring them back. But what's important to me is that, like yesterday, there's a good example. I got a text saying, I'm behind on this because David, we'll just use David for example, because David didn't sand
David.
the fascia board on the other side of the house yesterday. That's what the text was. And I said, you just, and then you wait, you don't feed their energy right away. Just wait like 10 to 20 minutes. And texted him back. I said, it's not really important what David didn't do. It's important what you're going to do. And I know you're going to do a great job. And that's all I said. And then, followed up later when he was not as heated and said, that was, below the line. Why was it below the line? He goes, oh, because I blamed him. I said, great, awesome. So all we need to know is the solution and how you're going to solve it. And that's going to show up better in our eyes than you blaming somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And
awesome.
So it happens like that sometimes. And it's just a matter of how we react to it. Because it's easy as a business owner to go, oh gosh, well, just sand the fascia then. What are you waiting for? And then it makes them go, and then you're throwing their like negative energy back at them, and it just self-perpetuates the situation. But
yeah,
that's pretty, and another, if I give one more example of last week, speaking of write-ups, we had to write up two guys on a team because at the end of the job, the job was over budget, and then they got a call back and there were a lot of blatant touch-ups, like a whole section of fascia board that was missed on the second floor. And, he said, like, this is unacceptable. Like, like, we can't have this on jobs. He said, well, you guys were rushing us. And that was their excuse. And I stepped back and I said, we weren't rushing you. You were 40 hours or something over budget. The least we can do is finish the job strong. And, that's your responsibility. And so they were written up for being so blatantly, like in terms of an excuse and just like brushing it off like it's our fault that they missed all these things. Yeah. And so it happened. It still happens. But at the same time, I saw the same employee this morning and it was good morning, boss, smiling, everything, handing me a check from yesterday's job. It doesn't mean that they're poisoned. Like if it happens, maybe they're having one bad day or, a couple bad days, and we just need to remind them that we're above the line. We have ownership, accountability, responsibility is the main focus of our company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. And they know that you care about them, Seth. You're doing lunches with them, aren't you? One-on-one every once in a while.
Yeah.
I think
month,
that you've already built in. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Number 4, be conscious of their emotional bank account. And this is a page out of Stephen Covey's book, The Emotional Bank Account. And what he says is that for every one criticism or knock or demeanor to them is equivalent to 10 compliments, 10 encouragements. So it's a 10-to-1 ratio. And so what he's saying is, make sure you at least compliment them, let them know you appreciate them 10 times before you criticize or correct them. And even if you do 10, that's like, now you're even. So be conscious of the emotional bank account. Don't go in there to every job, every time and just saying, hey, you missed this, you missed that, you missed this. Make sure that you point out what you appreciate about them, what they're doing right before you make that withdrawal.
I like that. I really like that. It goes both ways too.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was 7-to-1. Is it 10-to-1?
That's it. I'm pulling the book out.
Right behind
you don't want to just not say anything, and then one day you give them like, hey, good job, you're here. Hey, good job, you picked up a paintbrush. Now here's what I need you to make sure that you're doing that genuinely from the get-go.
Yeah.
And so that way when you do correct it, they're thankful for the correction.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Now,
so was it 7 or 10?
I'll pull it up later. I always went with 10, so if it was 7, I've been wrong for years. But I guess I'd rather be wrong, going too many than too less. But we'll find out later on.
Doing the
next. Okay.
Doing the praise in front of the team there's a lot of opportunities to do that. One of them is at your team leader meetings or your all team meetings or all team breakfast once a month. Especially with the newer guys, when you praise them in front of everybody else, even if it's like a cash little bonus, like a surprise bonus for kicking butt,
Oh yeah.
That stuff is like, it's huge for culture and huge for camaraderie. I know that I like to be, it's not necessarily, and this is the next step, love language, my love language, but it is a lot of people's. And you find out that the more and more you give someone praise, when they have something, to be criticized, they take it a lot better, like you said, and it goes both ways. I tell, I've asked my team to do the same with me, not to come at me all day with like, what's wrong. It needs to be a little bit of positive before you hit me with something negative,
Yeah. What's something you appreciate first before you let me know? Again, what you don't like, which is interesting because that is the next principle. Speak to them in their appreciation language. And April and I, we did a complete podcast on this. I believe it's episode 76.
You have to look to see what episode number.
I remember that one. Yep. I think I remember that one.
We'll highlight them here. Oh, go ahead, April.
I was just going to ask, was that was part of working with your spouse, wasn't it? Or was it a whole podcast?
All-star team and appreciation language. 76.
Okay, cool. Yeah. And what's the book? Because it's really the love languages, the 5 love languages book, Gary Chapman.
Yeah.
But we just changed the words to the 5.
Appreciation language in the workplace.
Yeah. Because it applies not only in love, but in respect.
Yeah. Respect, man. So here are the 5. One is acts of service. I know this is one of April's. Another one is quality time. That's another one of April's. And then Seth touched on this one, words of affirmation. That's definitely one of mine. That's why I'm always, you've got this. I'm encouraging everybody because we naturally speak our language to others, whatever it might be. 4th one's tangible gifts. This is a fun one. It's not April's or I's, and so we don't spend a lot of money on gifts for each other. We spend time together and tell each other we appreciate it and love each other. But you may have people on your team who really appreciate gifts. Okay, and then the 5th one.
It doesn't have to be expensive. It can just be a little something.
Lunch.
Someone with this gift. Yeah, lunch. It could be a pencil. This one person, a friend of mine, that was her love language. She's like, I got this pencil. It's so cool. I'm like, that excited about a pencil. It was just so thoughtful to her. She felt loved, so it does not have to be expensive. Those little trophies that get passed around. I guess that was in BNI, our BNI group for best commercial every week. But the team, your company could have a little karate trophy or whatever for kicking butt, and that could be passed out from weekly meeting to weekly meeting on who kicked butt that last week. And it's just a little thing,
That's awesome.
Yep.
I like that karate trophy.
You don't have to be in karate to get one. You can buy them.
Yeah. 5th one's physical touch. Now we throw in appropriate here. Okay. So this might be, a pat on the shoulders, pat on the back, and maybe a fist bump. Now it's really important to know their language because you want to speak to them in their language, but then you also don't want to use one that they don't like. For example, I know somebody who does not like being touched. In fact, one time we had a client here in town. He has a karate business, and I would pat him on the back, and he'd look at me sideways. I'm like, "Whoa!" He goes, "Don't do that." So what are you talking about? He says, "Well, I'm trained to like take you out." I'm like, "Seriously, you live this way? Like somebody pats you on the back, and you're ready to rip their neck off?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, man!" So be careful. To find out what is their appreciation language. Maybe it's acts of service. So have those lunches that April mentioned, and or no, quality time would be the lunch. Acts of service. You pick something up for them, or you drop something off for them, or you let them know, hey, I'm in the neighborhood. Can I bring you some Gatorade? Right. Sometimes that'll go a long ways for those who their language is acts of service. Words of affirmation for me, that's an easy one. You've got this. I believe in you. Great job. Thank you. You're awesome. All right. And then the tangible gifts, like April was saying, it doesn't have to be expensive. And then the appropriate physical touch. Okay. Now, go ahead.
I was just going to make a wise crack, but I better hold my tongue.
Well, now we're all dying to know what it was.
No, the karate guy, you learn your lesson. You would have learned your lesson if he would have taken you out.
Yeah, he would have. Yeah. No, look, that look he gave me though. I'm like, I'm never patting you on the back again, brother. Like, we're not shaking hands. I'm not fist bumping you. I'll just be like, give you a little wave across the room.
Yeah, I think here in California, the only appropriate physical touch we're allowed to do is maybe the fist bump. After COVID, the handshake's even gone, it seems.
Yeah, true. Elbow, isn't it an elbow?
Yeah.
Give me the elbow.
It's
I had somebody do that. Give me an elbow bump.
The bell.
Yeah. Mhm.
How about ear high five?
Yeah, there you go.
Ear high five.
Just don't miss. Yeah. Okay. Autonomy. Number 6. Number 6 is autonomy. Now, autonomy simply what we're talking about is don't be a micromanager.
Right.
Don't be a micromanager. And this is a tough one, especially for new entrepreneurs, because there's something called the Superman complex, you know. And we've all had it. I know we've had it. Everybody who is in business has had it. And here's how I know. Because you need it to launch your business.
Right. You need that. You need it because in the beginning, especially in a painting business, most likely either you have one crew and you're managing them if you're not a painter, or if you don't come from a painting background. Or if you come from a painting background, then you are the painter with helpers. And then once you have a couple crews and you're not painting anymore, the knee-jerk reaction is, I know how to paint. I'm going to go there. I'm going to touch up the door this afternoon. That way I don't lose money by sending guys to go touch up the door, guys or gals to go touch up the door. It's this endless cycle of you wanting to, and you're like, oh, it's just more efficient if I just handle all the little like touch-ups. Or that was my example of a Superman complex, is the touch-ups. Number one, it doesn't teach the team accountability that, hey, this is your touch-up. It's not mine. Number two, my time is much, much, much more valuable than what we pay the painters to paint on an hourly basis. So we're actually losing money by not making money during the time that I'm touching up. You know, it's like goes back to our old hourly responsibility from, you know, that's a whole different episode.
Yes.
Value.
But the Superman complex was huge to where I even had to make it to where I own one pair of whites just for doing some painting around my house. And because I don't know, just the ability just to be able to jump in and handle something was so tantalizing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't save the day sounds like so prideful. I really think you're just trying to help. It's not that you think you're so great. It's just that we want to help and just get it done. But the temptation is we think that's faster than actually having, because it does take a little bit longer to make them accountable to what they need to do. It does take more time in the beginning, so you're losing that time. But then once they know, they're responsible for their touch-ups. And going back to what you said about the hourly responsibility rate, Steve has a great video about that on YouTube somewhere, about the hourly responsibility rate. If you don't know what income you're supposed to be bringing in as the owner every hour, but when you do know, you find that number out by watching his video, and then you think, I don't have time to, it just changes your mind shift. You don't have time to go do all those things that you thought you had time because, it'll just take a second. Half an hour.
Yeah, you realize I can't afford to go take care of that. That's not wise use of your time.
It really, I totally agree, April. And it really circles back to the title of this episode, how to get your employees to do what you need them to do. If you're constantly doing what they need to be doing, then what are they learning? They're like, oh, my boss does what I need to do sometimes, so I don't have to worry about it.
Mm-hmm.
And
or he'll fix it.
Yeah. Seth will fix it. He'll worry about it. He'll figure out my schedule. Yeah. He'll figure it out.
So essentially, it comes back to you have to pick one. You pick either control or freedom. Right. You can have both. You can put controls in place, which you've done, systems, guidelines, but you can't have total control and freedom. Pick one. True. Right. Okay. I choose freedom.
So hard. Yes, freedom.
Yes. And so eventually become a delegating machine. That's ultimately your role, is to become a delegating machine so that you can do only what you can do in your business. That's usually sales, networking, and systems, putting systems together, documenting procedures. So everything else, delegate it. All right. Number 7, mastery. Very important to lay out a career path for your team. If you want to help them to get them to do what you need them to do, they need to, and this carries back to kind of the vision that you shared with them in onboarding, but a career path. Say, listen, you can start here and you make about this much, but you learn these skills and you achieve this, and you improve your production rates to this area, then you can make this, and then all the way up and say, listen, eventually you could become a salesperson, and easily be making 6 figures a year if that's what you would like to do. And they see that vision, and it's kind of like Mario Brothers. We back in the day we played level 1 and it was really hard, but then we beat that and we got to level 2 and we get that dopamine drip. All right, let's get to the next level. Let's get to the next level. So we have to lay that out for them so that they have a vision, because what's a proverb? Without a vision, the painters will perish.
Mm-hmm.
People will perish. But yeah,
it really gamifies. When you lay out the career path for them, it almost gamifies, like, oh, I want to get to the next level. I mean, and then you can really see, like, those that want to get to the next level, you can pick them out and recognize them as your all-star team. But that's who you want, and it makes it more fun. Gamifies. That's a book, isn't it, Steve? Gamify.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, But it's a big, thick book. It just is. That's one way to do it.
It is, yes. It's not here in any of my bookcases. I think it's at home. But it's there, yes. Sort of gamify.
I think if your option is to also grow, and you're growing your painting business and you're creating roles that didn't exist before, what was helpful for us in terms of laying out the career path, but also showing to the other team members that where they can go, is the fact that we have promoted from within. And so a lot of our team members have been with us for 2 years or more. And so they see certain people in leadership position that were not in the beginning, and they see like people escalating. Like, for instance, like David, our other sales guy, he came on as a painter, he progressed to a team leader, and then he progressed into the sales position. And so people that have been around as long or longer than David are looking like, be like David, how can I be like David, And then other guys like Andres, who have a company truck. He's been with me 2 years, and he's in his early 20s, and he's a great worker, great customer experience ambassador. A little euphemism there, but that's what he is. and other guys that started the same time as him see him now with a company vehicle and a gas card and autonomy. And it's really neat, and it helps other guys see where they can go in the company if they're watching people escalate. They're watching people climb the ladder within. Yeah. Instead of just hiring somebody randomly from outside the company to take a management role, they're seeing like, oh, my counterpart did it, so I'm next. And like, they see that,
Yes.
Yeah, indeed. Fantastic. All right, so let's see here. Number 8 is purpose. A few points here on purpose. It's like, how do you give them purpose? Well, one is, we mentioned this in the beginning through the onboarding, but vision and mission. Share the vision with them, and then also your mission. And hopefully it involves a little bit more than painting homes, but making a difference in your community, which is one of our values. And we certainly did this with our company, and the community was grateful for us, and they handed us awards and features in magazines for making a difference in the community. But moreover, our team, the culture would just go up a notch every time. And one of those, community services was Paint It Forward 2.0. And I call it 2.0 because I have a different spin on it. And the details are all laid out in the cafe. But essentially, it's all about making Paint It Forward about the team. It's not so much about marketing and recognition in the community, but just allowing the team to take ownership and make a difference. And it was fun every time we had a new person on, and they joined us in our first, one of our Paint It Forwards 2.0s. They would come up to us afterwards and say, wow, that was amazing. When are we going to do the next one? And we were doing on average 4 a year because of the difference it made in our culture, And then, in fact, like, I just shared the story with Seth a week or two ago during my visit about Fabrice. One time I stopped by the shop, I was dropping something off, and I caught him in the shop after hours cleaning and organizing off the clock. And I'm like, hey, Reese, how you doing? Hey, good. What are you up to? Oh, just clean up a little bit. I'm like, you're not on the clock, man. He goes, oh, yeah, it's no big deal. I said, how long you been here? Oh, and he looks, he goes, oh, I wasn't even paying attention. It's been over an hour. He says, my wife and kids are away, and I just saw that, it needed to be picked up a little bit. So I just thought I'd take care of it, That's just one example of culture, in big part thanks to community service and having a purpose that's bigger and greater than just painting homes,
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm a huge proponent of that. I think one year we did 5, but on average we were doing 4, and the difference it made in culture was incredible.
Yeah, and one of the big parts of having it impact culture is that the team picked the winner. So we would gather all the winners. We'd go to all the networking events. That would be our promotion. Hey, we need nominations. And so please nominate somebody. You'd pass out flyers. You'd go everywhere you could to pass out flyers. But when you got all those nominations, the team got to pick who they wanted to paint for. They would hear the story. And it really brought a lot of buy-in because they know they're making a difference in that person that they decided to paint their home for, or their bedroom, or their whatever it was.
Yes. Yeah, indeed. Another, go ahead.
As you know, we haven't done the full cafe until recently. We started our new campaign for the Paint It Forward 2.0. But in the past, when we've done it, I'll give you an example of how not to do it. How about this? Is that we've done it to where we just paid a team to do most of the work throughout the week. And it was like, they're just doing this community service for this preschool. And for 4 days, they painted the inside of the preschool. And the preschool owner, they were very excited. It was a private preschool. They were very excited about it. But the guys went to work and they just did the job. And I said, oh, we're doing this for charity. And they were just like, oh, that's cool. But they were getting paid. And in the end, there wasn't an excitement about it, even though I wanted to take a picture with the lady and everything. I thought we were doing a good thing, which we were, in terms of the preschool needed to reopen and they needed a facelift, and so it wasn't completely lost. But in terms of the culture building, it didn't serve our company culture because the guys were just getting paid to do this. So that's just an example of
they didn't have an opportunity to give. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah,
indeed,
totally. The opportunity, April. It's like it was lost for building the culture.
It's awesome. Thank you for that example, Seth. The last one here we'll share on the point of purpose are company get-togethers with the family, and I think this was another one of our favorites. And when you have their families over, I think the biggest opportunity to give your team member the biggest compliment is to praise them about a specific attribute that they have, or skill or strength, to their wife and to their children, and get down on like one knee and just say, your dad is the best XYZ that we've ever had. He is so amazing. Did you know that about your dad? And that'll mean the world to them, right? To compliment them, to their family, to their spouse, to their children, and let them know how much you appreciate them and how awesome they are.
Plus, they're a heck of a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. And they don't have to be expensive either. We started cheap.
I think we went to the local brewery here, and they have awesome hot dogs and hamburger selection, and arcade games for the kids, and big picnic tables, so you don't have to reserve like tables. It's just like family, order a bunch of food and open the tab. Mm-hmm. And it was just fun. We had kids running around, getting prizes out of the machine and throwing their stuff around. It was a lot of fun, and we're looking forward to doing another one. But you go to a place like that, and I think for, 16 of us, we had about 80% turnout, but 16 people, it was like $600. And for doing it once a quarter, I mean, I'm looking forward to doing the next one for sure. It was a lot of fun. I think everybody had a lot of fun.
Awesome. What a great example. So we got to roll up here, roll out, roll up, roll out to recap how to get your employees to do what you need them to do. 8 points that we went over were: first, hire for character, proper onboarding, practice the above the line culture, be conscious of their emotional bank account, speak to them in their appreciation language, give them autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And you know what I think we really did here today, guys? It's really an episode on culture, right? That's what it all comes back to. It all comes back to culture. Because
Yeah.
once your culture is locked in, everything else takes care of itself.
And
What
the,
is that
and the
quote
culture,
about culture eats something? Go ahead, Mila.
oh, and the culture protects the culture. So once the culture is strong, the team members themselves protect their culture, and they put people in check, and they start to do it. They start to checking other people below the line activity before I even hear about it. So it's
Right
the
on.
stronger the culture, the stronger the walls.
Yes, sir. Right
Awesome.
on. Thank you, Seth. April?
Culture eats strategy for breakfast. That's what I heard.
Yes. Okay, Peter Druckard. Where is he? Oh,
Yeah.
back there. Yeah, I mean, yeah, the effective
I'm glad
executive.
you remember who.
Peter Druckard. Yes, sir. I want to give him the godfather of project management. So fantastic. Thank you, April. Thank you, Seth. Appreciate you guys. And before we roll out, I want to encourage everybody to do exactly what it says above Seth's left shoulder for our YouTube viewers. That is to dream big, hustle smarter. You've got this. Take care, everybody.
See you later.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. If this was helpful, please share it with a friend to help inspire them to double their business. Again, this is April Burnett. Steve and I are the founders of Burnett Painting and DYB Coach. We want to take a moment and thank you for making us the most rated podcast dedicated specifically to painting contractors. To celebrate, we want to help you break through to higher success. So Steve is now giving away free strategy calls. Just click the link below in the show notes that says free strategy call. There are only a couple of openings on his calendar each week, so get your free call with Steve now. Thank you so much for listening, and remember to dream big, hustle smarter, you've got this.